What is going on, spectators? It's your boy Nico. I'm here with my man Alejandro. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Got a special video for you guys today. Longtime buddy of mine, graphic designer, content creator, founder of Teebox Disc Golf, Mr. Paul Johnson's with us today. How are you doing, Paul?
What's up, guys? I'm doing great, guys. How are
you?
Good. It's a nice little cool we had a little cool weekend down here in Florida, so we're, enjoying
3 days.
3 days. Hey,
3
we'll
days
take it though.
cold.
It's Florida, Southeast living, something that you kind of know a little bit about, right, Paul?
You're in Knoxville right now, right?
I'm in Knoxville now, but born in the Carolinas, grew up there, so I'm no stranger to humid, hot, but it's quite a bit cooler in Knoxville than maybe what I'm used to. And so, today was nice. Today was 65, and last week was got into the 50s. Yeah. But next week it's supposed to be gorgeous. It's not supposed to get over 62, sunny all week. But nice. I'm going to be in rainy Peoria, Illinois next week, so that's kind of crazy.
Oh, man.
Anything disc golf related?
Yeah, actually, and we can get into the details, but I just got hired by a manufacturer.
Nice.
And so I'm headed up there to make a bunch of videos and content with a couple athletes and do some review videos of some upcoming products. It's kind of I worked for athletes, and I'll give you the details on this, but I work for athletes, but I'm making the transition into retail. And so the off season is full of selling merchandise during the holidays. And so that's where my focus is primarily right now and where it's going to be when I'm up there next week. But yeah, it's wild times.
Nice. So exciting time for Teebox Disc Golf here.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get into actual Teebox Disc Golf. I want to kind of get from the beginning, kind of how it all started. You went to Clemson, you started getting your graphic design there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, you've known me long enough to know that we're both artistic people. Story time, when me and Alejandro were in 8th grade together, we would do this combined daily art project where we would take a sports logo and Alejandro would draw it and then I would shade the whole thing. And we would do this every single day. And I'd love to find that sketchbook because I'm sure they looked absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
But we thought we were the stuff. Every single morning we made
we were. I'm not gonna lie.
It's pretty legit. But all that to say that I've always known that's what I wanted to do. And so I went to Clemson, like you said, got a degree in graphic communications and got out. COVID hit, shoved me into a job I didn't want to take because the jobs just weren't there. But luckily, one side sort of benefit of that job is that I was working 40-hour weeks, but I was only ever doing 25 hours of work because it just wasn't the workload to keep me busy because I'm a very efficient, fast worker. Got into disc golf in 2017-ish. Seriously, I've played it since 2011. Basically right after we graduated from middle school. But 2017 really started enjoying playing it. And then while I was at that job, decided I wanted to kind of focus some of my design chops on disc golf. Because when I was at Clemson, I worked with the football team and I worked with the basketball team. And this is when Clemson was we're still legit. I know we're 5-3, but we're still legit as far as I'm concerned. Just a couple little issues with the offense. Tony Elliott. I'm not pointing fingers, but Tony Elliott. Anyway, but while I was there, I was working with the football team and learned from the best in sports marketing, specifically for collegiate athletics. And I saw what it took to run that level of social media page, and I saw that there was just a gap in disc golf. The sport was growing, and it seemed to require that kind of attention, and just no one had either the experience or the dedication to kind of merge, high fidelity sports marketing with disc golf. And so I kind of filled a bit of a niche there. Picked up some clients when I first started doing it full time, in December. Try to kind of focus on putting actual time and effort into it. And then at the beginning of December, I was for the 25 days of Christmas, I'm going to do a piece of artwork every single week and then do giveaways on Fridays. I started with 250 followers and finished with 2,500.
That's insane.
Wow. It got traction quick. And then at the end of that, I also signed a contract with, or I guess brought on my first major client, which is Ricky Wysocki, who's maybe not now, but at that point was the number one player in the world. And for the most of this season was the number one player in the world. Guys won 2 world championships. He's legit. And then from there, I decided in February that I was going to quit my job, focus on this full time. I knew I was moving to Knoxville. And so I figured from February to when I was going to move, I was going to focus on it. If it worked, I was going to dedicate my time to it. If it didn't, I just find another desk job. We're obviously doing this interview, so it worked out.
It worked out, yeah.
Yeah. And this past season was unreal. We can talk about like what disc golf professionally looks like, because obviously it's not a sport I'm assuming that you guys have touched.
No,
not much.
Yeah,
not much
yeah, no, I wouldn't expect you to. To be honest, I wouldn't expect you to. But I feel like the audience is there, and things have blown up so much, especially in COVID. 2020 was a tremendous year because people, cities were shutting down parks, but a lot of times disc golf courses are on separate properties, and they remained open. And so people were like, well, I want to go outside and do something. I'm working from home anyway. And this store sells starter pack discs. And then all of a sudden, membership went from like the PDGA membership, which is like when you want to play disc golf and play events, you get a membership number. And that number corresponds to so the first guy was 1. I'm 130,099. So it's basically 130,000th person to sign up. We're almost at 200,000 now, and that's like in a year.
Yeah.
And so the first guy was like 1970 something. I'm 130,000, and we basically almost doubled that in a year. So it took 40 years to get that far, almost 50 actually. And then now we've almost doubled it in like 2 years' time. So things are really growing fast, and that's the reason why I'm able to do the work that I do, because there's actually a market for it now, which there wasn't before.
Exactly. And it's for sure spreading, because at least, like you said, I don't have much knowledge on disc golf, but the first interaction or experience that I saw was actually from ESPN. They posted what was the clip by
James Conrad, I believe.
It was his insane shot. That's the first time I got dipped into that.
Right. That's, in my opinion, the greatest sport shot of all time.
Yeah, that's up there.
If you're not a disc golf fan, you don't understand the gravity of what transpired at that moment. Unfortunately, I was at Myrtle Beach. I was supposed to be there that week, but it happened to be on my family's timeshare week. And so unfortunately, I wasn't in Utah to watch it happen. All my friends were, which is a bummer, because my phone was blowing up when he landed the shot and then went on to actually win. A lot of people think that was for the win. It actually wasn't. It was to tie, and then they went to a playoff hole and he won. Yeah. Which if it was a walk-off, it'd have been the greatest thing ever.
That's it.
Unfortunately, it wasn't. Not to knock it or anything, but what happened was, James climbed back up the leaderboard. He was like in 6th to start the day. He climbed back up to 2nd, and the guy who he was up against on that hole is 5-time world champ, 3-time U.S. champ Paul McBeth. The guy's basically our Michael Jordan. He's like the most loved player. He was the first guy to sign a contract where they actually disclosed the amount. He signed a 10-year, $10 million contract with the company that actually hired me this offseason. And so obviously when you talk about that in terms of like baseball contracts, it pales in comparison, obviously. But for us, it was like a massive, massive step in like legitimizing the sport. But yeah, most successful player. And on the shot right before that, he like pitched up to the green because he's playing for par, because he's a stroke ahead. And he knows there's basically no way from where James is, because his tee shot wasn't great. There was no way he was going to be able to get up and down with a birdie to tie the hole. 247 feet out, beautiful turnover shot with his. It's actually a putter that he threw. It's called an MVP Envy. Throws it up on a little bit of turnover, clashes the chains. I was live on TV and I just like screamed and hollered and it blew my mind. Obviously, he went on to win, which was pretty cool. But that was a lot of people's first look at it because it blew up on ESPN. It was, I think it was second. Of course, it probably lost to like a baseball catcher or some BS or something. It's always like an outfielder stretching out and catching it over the wall that we get, that we lose to. But yeah, it didn't surprise me that was like your first look at it, because it seems to be that's the story that I've heard from a lot of people.
Yeah, no, it was really exciting to see like the kind of way ESPN kind of introduced that whole thing, especially with it being in like the top 10 sports plays of the week, because it kind of, like you said, disc golf didn't really get much of a pop. Kind of most people don't know about it. We honestly don't cover it as much, right? But I believe now with this ESPN kind of partnership with disc golf, it really has brought a lot more viewers and a lot of eyes in the disc golf world, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken, right?
Right. And yeah, and a lot of that, it kind of, I guess there's a lot of parts that came together to make this happen. One major thing is PGA has the PGA Tour. Disc golf has the Disc Golf Pro Tour, the DGPT for short. And it's been around for a handful of years and recently sort of changed ownership. There's a guy, Todd Rainwater, who is part of the Rainwater oil family in Texas. And so fairly lucrative individual. He came along, purchased the rights to the entire league, and then put a guy named Jeff Spring in charge of the whole show. And since then, there's been this, exponential growth and quality of sort of the pro side of disc golf. And last year, there was, what I would say are the first major strides to getting disc golf in front of like a massive audience. The Dynamic Discs Open was broadcasted on CBS Sports with, produced by Jomez Productions, which is sort of like we have live coverage. There's guys who go out and they shoot the event and they actually stream it to Disc Golf Network, which is an app we have. But most people who are fans of disc golf watch what's called post-produced coverage, which is where they'll actually film the event and then take it, chop it up, edit it, do like, the disc tracer lines, and they have a scoreboard at the bottom. It's really, really great looking coverage, and they post it on YouTube. But that's sort of like how things have been going for so long. And now obviously like the major stride that we have to take to get disc golf from being, at the level that it is to being up there with the MLS and with the PGA is to have like perfectly sharp professional live coverage. And like I said, they did a coverage thing on CBS Sports. It wasn't live, but it was a post like hour-long broadcast that was very educational. It wasn't what disc golf fans were maybe used to seeing online, where they get to watch an entire 18 holes over the course of like an hour. Instead, it was like an hour-long broadcast that basically took an entire 5 days of disc golf and shoved it into 1 hour-long segment with educational bits, and it tried to tell a story. And it was successful. And then actually ESPN2 agreed to do actual like full coverage of the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship in Charlotte. And at the time that it aired, which I think was a month or so after it actually happened last year, when they aired it, it was like the highest rated show on ESPN's network in general, like not just ESPN2, the entire network. And then they re-aired it over the course of a handful of months, and every single time it was tops of the rating charts. And actually, I think it's on Sunday. What's the 12th? Was that Friday? It's either the 12th or the 14th.
Yeah, I think that's
today's the 10th. So I think it's either Friday or Sunday. Friday. But they're actually ESPN2 is actually airing this year's edition of the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championships live on air, either Friday or Sunday. I'm not sure. But all that to say that not only is disc golf growing and people in disc golf are trying to get it to grow, but it's growing at a rate big enough to where major networks and people who could not otherwise care less about disc golf as a sport, they just care about the money that can be made. They're seeing the value in it, and they're pushing it out through their outlets, which is massive for disc golf and massive for me, because I'm a creator in the sport who now has connections to ESPN through the grapevine, so to speak. Yeah. So yeah, that's very awesome. Quickly moving. Yeah.
And how did it all start for you? Like, I know Teebox started young and you were trying to get into it and just kind of sharpen your graphic design skills and all that. But where did you kind of realize, okay, this is going to be kind of serious? Like, I'm meeting all these people. How did it start like for you?
So like I said, I was working with that company, and the thing that made me realize that I wanted to step away and give it a chance, like doing it full time, was when I realized that I was taking less commission than I was being offered, just because of the time commitment that was involved. Yeah. And so there's really cool projects that with the nature of working a full-time job and coming home and doing the work that I was making with Teebox on the side, I was working like 75-hour weeks. It was absolutely unreal. I was getting up at like 5:30 a.m., working till I went in, getting home, grabbing a smoothie at Smoothie King, and then working till 11. And so when I realized that it was like, wow, there's jobs that I really want to take from really cool clients that I just don't have the bandwidth to complete, I was like, maybe I should step away, because the job that I was working was more or less a dead end, and they didn't pay me well at all. And so it was low risk but high reward if it worked out to leave. And yeah, I walked out of work on a Tuesday and went home, grabbed my bags, got on a flight to Vegas to attend the Las Vegas Challenge and shoot photos and network, and pretty much never looked back after that point. And from then on, it was just, I would go to an event, I would make a connection with this person, and I was mainly working with the three major player clients that I had. I would go to an event and I would just take pictures of them or walk with them. Drew Gibson, who's a good buddy of mine, he's currently I think he's the 10th best player in the world. Me and him are good friends, and I would go caddy for him at events and stay with him, and I'd travel to a handful of events with him. And then just kind of like while I was there, I would just not really hustle for work. I've never been one to like just throw my work in people's faces. I figure if it's good enough, it's going to make the rounds on Instagram and they'll come to me. And it's worked pretty well, I'd say, for the most part. But that's kind of how things transpired. And then, I guess to bring us up to where we are now with my business, I was doing all this artwork for players, but realized after a while that my skills are better suited for manufacturers and retailers. And then I was in Vermont at the Green Mountain Championships this year, and started talking with the folks at Discraft, a company called Ledgestone, which is like an event and online retailer ran by my now boss, Nate Heinold. And then from there, it was like, okay, at the end of the season, let's finalize things. Let's do something exclusive. And so I'll be working with them during the off season and for the remainder of however long I'm working with them, which is pretty cool. It's where I want to be. It's where there's the most money to be made, but also where there's the biggest chance to make an impact on the sport that lasts for, a while, which is my main goal. The money is whatever. It's really just a matter of making the sport bigger and badder and way more professional. And I think that I offer a lot to the sport as a creator, but also just like a mind who's really excited about making this thing big, because that's the ultimate goal, right? And so, yeah, that's where I am now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we'd be remiss not to ask someone with such great knowledge in the sport of disc golf, how would you recommend someone, who may not, have much knowledge about disc golf to get into disc golf? How would you recommend someone?
Sure.
Yeah, like how would we get into that?
Well, people always ask like, I don't know where a course is or whatever. If you live in the US, there's a very small chance that you live more than 30 minutes away from a course, if I'm being completely honest. And you guys being in South Central Florida, there are courses everywhere. Two of my favorite courses in the entire world are within probably 40 minutes of you guys. So that's that. As far as just getting into it, go to any Dick's Sporting Goods, buy the first disc you see that says mid-range on it, and go out and just try to throw it at something. In all likelihood, you're going to throw it straight up in the air and it's going to do this, because that's what every beginner throw looks like. But I feel like I'm no disc golf chucker anymore. I've been playing it long enough to where I feel like I'm pretty good. I'm not making money playing events, let's just say that, but I'm good enough to where I can go out and I can enjoy it. I did not really go out and enjoy it much early on. Well, that's the wrong thing to say. If I played like I did back then, now I would like be ready to throw my bag down and never touch it again and just walk away. But at the time, you're just like, I guess your standards for playing are fairly low. And so when you do make that small stride where the disc flies straight or it flips up and turns over, like you nail a big shot, it's just endorphins every single time you do it. It's like taking a hit every single time something cool happens.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the real addiction factor to it, is like, it's not like any other sport experience. The art of throwing a backhand at disc golf is a motion that's not shared in any other sport, except for like, if you're a switch hitter in baseball, that's pretty close, but that form isn't shared with any other sport, which is unique. And there's all bits that it's just a different sport playing experience that I think is like so much easier to get into than say ball golf. Because ball golf, the problem with that is like there's a financial commitment. and there's an incredible learning curve. And that's part of the reason why I don't play it, is because, one, I don't make golf money, and two, I don't have golf athleticism. I suck at it. I'm so bad. But disc golf is like, I feel like a little bit easier to get up and running. I think perfecting it and becoming good at it is just as hard as golf, like real golf. Real golf, ball golf. It's just as hard as that. I hate saying real golf.
Golf.
It doesn't do anything good for my sport. But I think there's a same level of like mastery there. You know, hitting a perfect fade in golf is just as hard as throwing a perfect hyzer flip in disc golf and having it land flat. But getting to where you can even chip a golf ball takes way more practice than just throwing a disc. And so that's why I think it has a more immediate satisfaction factor, because you can go out and not make a total fool of yourself the first time you play it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, to answer Nico's original question, just go out, find a disc, and throw it. Because that's how pretty much everyone starts. And if you look at my closet, I start with one disc, and there's probably 250 to 300 discs in my closet right now. And that's not even all.
And I see the bag behind you as well with the disc on there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is and I've got, well, this is like my main bag. Yeah, this isn't even a big bag. And that's there you go. That's probably loud. That's the company I work for, by the way.
Awesome.
Nice.
Not that it matters, but
true. Something
that was my
light.
Spider-Man bag.
He said that's not even big.
Yeah.
And
it's
going
not,
off of
not.
that, just
like,
question-wise,
sure.
For the bag, is that amount of discs normal for a typical, is it tee or just a gameplay for a course?
Right. Not necessarily. I'd say like the grand majority of people don't need more than probably 8 discs. I think 8 discs, like owning 8 discs means you can go to any course, if you're good, any course, and shoot at least par.
Okay.
If you're a good disc golfer. Like I don't need all of that. The reason why I carry so many is if I go play a practice round and there's water or something, and I throw one in the water, now I've got a backup. It's almost like a little security blanket. It also means that every single time I play a course, I have to repack my bag. And so I'd say that's pretty standard. I carry 17, which is maybe for like pro disc golfers or avid disc golfers. I'd say 17's on like the below average side. Most people are in like the 24 range, 25 maybe. And then there's some extreme cases where players will carry like, 32 to 35. I think that's excessive. I don't know why you'd need that many discs, because to be completely honest, even to play like the championship level course in my area, there are definitely discs in my bag that I won't throw because, I just don't necessarily need that shot, or it's a backup for another disc that if I have the actual disc, I'm not going to throw the backup, because why would I? That sort of thing. So yeah, I'd say that's fairly average, for the most part. My younger brother, he's in that, above average range, carrying closer to like, 28 to 30 discs. And I'm like, dude, you don't need that, right? And he's like, yeah, but it makes it look cool. There's definitely a clout factor in disc golf. It's just as strong, obviously, like, having a certain set of clubs and golf makes you look legit. Disc golf's the exact same way. Maybe even more so, because there's a really, really savage and like almost animalistic collector group in disc golf that's just so toxic. I mean, you'll see guys pay outrageous prices for, when you break it down, is literally like a plate made of plastic.
Yeah.
And guys are shelling out. Actually, hold on, let me show you something.
Okay. Oh man, Babe Ruth baseball right now.
Yes.
Disc golf.
So this thing's pretty cool. It's pretty. This disc.
Oh wow.
Firebird.
Yes, this is what I got in Vegas. This is a Las Vegas Challenge, 2021 Las Vegas Challenge Firebird. I've tried to sell it multiple times, and for whatever reason, it keeps getting kicked off of like the Facebook collector groups. I don't know why. But once I get it sell, it'll probably sell for anywhere between $450 and $700.
Wow. Nuts.
Wow.
I don't
What's
know
a typical,
why.
for comparison, what's a typical average price for a disc?
Oh, like in my bag, there's not a disc in there that I paid more than $20 for.
Oh, okay.
$450. Wow.
Right. It's just there's some stuff that's just weirdly collectible. In this case, it's a very popular mold by a very popular manufacturer that's only sold at one event for the year, and they only make like 200 of them, and so it's pretty unique. Like I had to sit in a very, very long line to grab mine. And so yeah, that's extreme. This is way over the top for collectible value. But yeah, I mean, if like, you know, my original disc golf bag, I bought the bag itself was like a little like side bag, like almost like a satchel type thing that carried like 7 discs or 8 discs. I think I probably paid $15 for the bag, which was, I think for my bag was the most expensive part of it. Everything else, I just went to a Play It Again Sports and went to their used bin and probably spent top $7 for like a very, very mildly used disc. And so I'd say that's like the majority of people is they'll just go to, you know, their local Play It Again Sports and pick up a handful of discs. And so it's like I said, very low financial commitment that once you're into it becomes a very big financial commitment, because let's be honest, buying new discs is like just as cool as throwing a great shot, because it's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to throw it and see how it flies. In reality, it flies like everything else you own. It's not special, it's just orange. But yeah, it's a steep slope to fall into, but it's so rewarding. Like my best memories for the past handful of years, you know, whether it's, you know, the first time I threw a hole-in-one, or, you know, playing collegiate national championships at Clemson, or traveling to all these events, like it's super exciting to you know, have like a collection of stories that I share with so many other people who are into disc golf, whether they've been into it since 1996 or whether they've been into it since, you know, June. It's pretty wild. Like everyone has their unique take, and you know, it's just like any other sport, just a lot smaller and a lot more niche, but it'll be there. We're getting there slowly.
It's for sure growing as well. Cause once you were talking about the courses, it's actually funny because my apartment complex, it has a course in it. Like there's.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my apartment complex has the whole, I think it's maybe 12 holes, right? I'm assuming. And it's just around, it goes through like the apartment complex and around like the apartment complex. Like we have some couple lakes, so like there's hazards as well. And when I first moved there, I never saw the actual holes. So I was just like, what are these poles? Like there's like launching areas and all that. I'm like, what is this? Yep. And then I found out, I'm like, oh, okay. And it's all kind of started clicking once I saw the Top Shot video. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, and like, it's took it more seriously as a sport. And it's just like, it's exciting to see where it's going. Not like, I'm not a fan, but I'm starting to see a lot more stuff that's making me a fan, you know, like it's more interesting.
Eventually it'll be one of these things where, you know, there'll be fans who are just into it for the professional side who don't even play. Like I don't play football, but I'm a huge football fan. There will be disc golf fans who only watch professional disc golf, and I can't wait for that day. Yeah. Because then there'll be like, you know, all the people like, oh man, you know, it must be so cool to be good at disc golf. Because now it's like if you play, there's a good chance that you're good, because there's just not many people playing, and so the people who do play are really dedicated. And so, but yeah, we'll get there eventually, just because, you know, the amount of exposure, you know, week in and week out. This, you know, around now is when things slow down, just because the Pro Tour is done and it's not really much of a winter sport. I mean, there are people who play. They do what are called like ice bowls, which are run tournaments. Like they'll start them at like 6 o'clock in the morning, like 20 degrees, and you go out and basically just suffer through a round and pay for it. I don't know how people do it. It makes no sense to me. Those like the really dedicated people. I'm like I don't really want to go play if it's you know, less than 55, because my hands just hurt and it's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. And you know, living in the Southeast, I guess is Florida part of the Southeast? I know it is, like geographically, but is it really?
It's its own thing.
It's like
we're just a state.
Yeah,
it's south.
Right.
East.
Yeah, it's not like if you ask someone like, oh, where are you from? They don't go to the South. I'm like, oh, what part of the South? Oh, I'm from Dunedin. It's like no one says that, because it's not in the South. Like that's not part of the South. But anyway, what I'm getting at is that like anywhere south of Virginia and to New Mexico, that square from Texas all the way over to the Atlantic Ocean, is what I would consider to be like the disc golf hub. Like that's where the most growth is happening. There's players all places. California is where the sport originated, and there's players over there. But like the sport is headquartered in just outside of Augusta in Appling, Georgia. And so it's kind of interesting that like, the Masters is played in Augusta and disc golf, the PDGA, the Professional Disc Golf Association's founded right down the road. They play U.S. Championships is in Rock Hill. It's on Winthrop University's sports campus. They play the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championships in Charlotte. And most players live in the Carolinas. And if they don't live in the Carolinas and they spend their off season in the Carolinas or in Florida, just because it's a nice place to stay. Because if you live in Wisconsin, like my buddy Adam, he lives in northern Wisconsin. That's not very ideal for being a professional disc golfer during the off season. So he stays with his buddy in Arizona and lives there during the off season. And so like anywhere where it's warm, but I think just because of the history in the Southeast for the sport, it'll continue this will just continue to be the hub where everything sort of expands out of it, because, as players are getting to a point where they're making enough money to, buy real estate and have a nice house and actually move and commit to an area, everyone's just flooding to Charlotte, because the number of like championship level courses is very high there, and it's fairly temperate. You can stay there all summer and it doesn't get it's hot, but it's not like living in Phoenix where, you have issues with hydration every single time you walk outside, but also in the winter, it's not like an entire course is covered in snow. And so anybody who's watching the show, like if you guys live in the Southeast, I'm assuming, are most of your viewers from Florida, or is it pretty central? You guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So for you guys, like, especially if you're in the Tampa area, Clearwater has, if you're willing to make the drive, has Cliff Stevens Park, which is one of my favorite courses. It's actually the home course to the most accomplished disc golfer ever. This guy named Ken Climo is like 12-time U.S. champion. This is a dude's or 12-time world champion. He's long since retired, but he's from Clearwater. That's his home course. There's also Coachman Park, but those are two really fun courses. The one I'm down staying in Clearwater with Grace's dad, we'll always go and hit up those courses. But it's a great area. And if you're in Tampa, I know that I haven't played the courses in Tampa, but there's definitely a lot of disc golf there. And even as you get over towards Orlando, like they hosted the Amateur World Championships in Orlando. There's a really big property down there, and so very, very accessible to anyone who might be listening to this. Like, just go out, like I said, buy a disc, throw it at something, and maybe you'll get hooked. Maybe you won't. I know people who have tried it and they're like, it's not for me. But I will say that it's definitely the majority of people who I know that have at least tried it are willing to give it a second shot after playing it the first time. And then from there, it's just logarithmic. Like, it's like, oh, I kind of care. And then all of a sudden they're like buying $250 grip bags, and they've got an issue with their closet where discs are just falling out. And like,
right.
It hasn't hurt my relationship yet, but I do need to organize the closet here soon, because it's getting in the way of Christmas stuff, which
I think
is kind of a problem.
I think too as well that the kind of, like you said, the kind of simple, easy reward factor of playing disc golf for new golfers. I mean, it's not like actual golf, right? Where it's kind of a struggle if you're really playing golf, trying to make, this golf ball into this little hole, you know what I'm saying? Where as compared to disc golf, you can get a quick little satisfaction of, airing one out and just getting it a hole in one maybe, right? And I think that also can attribute to, getting more people involved with playing that, right? And just trying it out, because, that's, a quick little fun little thing, especially right. We can go to, Alejandro's little apartment complex and just mess around, and, who knows, we might be pretty good at it, right?
Those players are elite. They're pretty, those athletes are elite.
Yeah,
man.
it's I will say that one thing that I've noticed from people, and like when I get on TikTok, and I'm constantly seeing, like a random disc golf video post on a random account, because TikTok obviously knows that I like it, and it'll, show me videos from whether or not it's from like an actual disc golf account or just like a sports account. One of the top comments is always like, looks easy. Like, not a real sport.
It never is.
One video that's hilarious. I would say it's the first, I think, proper viral video out of disc golf. And it's actually one of my old clients, Kevin Jones, who's a guy from Arkansas, great player. last year, this is before one of the bigger events of the year. It's got Maple Hill and just outside of Boston. They were doing like a skins match where every hole you make, if you win the hole, you get like 500, or like I think it was like $150 or something. And then, if you tie it, then that money gets added in the next hole and it stacks up. And if you cash in, you get a ton of money. Well, anyway, he was on one of the holes on that property, and it's like 500 feet, which when you say it doesn't sound like a lot. When you see it and you think, I'm going to throw this Frisbee into that little tiny dot way down there, it looks a lot longer. But on this hole, it was like 500 feet and slightly downhill and through like a 25-foot gap the entire way. So you got to just rip it dead straight. Well, Kevin I'll get kind of technical for a second. He throws understable discs, meaning if you throw a disc flat, it's going to have a tendency to try to roll on its side and actually like hit the ground and roll like a wheel. Okay. But what he does, he throws it on an angle to where when he throws it, it actually flips at the flat and goes straight. It's called throwing a hyzer flip. And he throws a gorgeous shot, but on his release slips and like does this crazy contorting thing where like falls off the tee pad. When I first saw it, I was like, this dude's done. His career is over. His knee is destroyed. Like his meniscus and MCL and ACL are just like ripped out and like in his ankles. It was the grossest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Didn't get hurt, but then cans the shot. 500 feet. Aces
I think I know exactly what video you were talking about. I remember seeing that because they looked painful, but it went. Yeah, it looked really painful.
Like he hits the ground and kind of grabs his knee and like because like you hear it, it goes like thud. He smacks his knee right into the end of the tee pad, and the tee pads. I think the tee pad was like tile stones or something, which I've seen those pads before. They're really common up north, and I'm just not a huge fan. But yeah, slips, cans the ace. I think they had like an ace pot where every single round they would throw like a certain amount of money in and built up. And I'm not sure how much he made off. It was a couple grand. So it was a pretty lucrative shot. Actually, since then on that show, it's the OTB skins match. They do it with like 4 pros before every tournament round, and put it on YouTube. Since that ace on video, there hasn't been one since, and I think the ace pot's like $11,000 now. And so when someone hits it, to me, very, very good payday, assuming they ever do. I'm assuming they will. And so, but that's like the first big proper video, which, for the guys producing the show, if you guys, I'll send you a link to that. Put it in the caption because it's absolutely unreal. Even if you're not into disc golf and you never decide to, do anything with this interview, just go watch that clip because it's freaking mind blowing. It's like my favorite clip ever. It's pretty gross. If you're injury sickness prone, he doesn't get hurt. Just know that. But it's not fun to watch because when you're watching it happen, there's no way he's gonna get up and walk away from that. And he did.
Yeah. The average guy's probably not getting up from that bad boy.
Nah.
No,
not going straight.
My knee be done.
No way.
Yeah, knee is giving out. Real quick, Paul, kind of to go back into talking about, Teebox, the brand, right? You kind of went into a point where you were explaining how you had a job, and you didn't like the job is underpaid, and then you kind of just went for it and just jumped right into a flight to Vegas and marketed that way and stuff. And I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that situation, and a lot of people in general who want to expose or build up on their new brands and really create, and content creators and stuff in general, right? They really want to push that, but there comes a point where it's tough to push that stuff and still have to keep up with bills and pay stuff financially, right? So what kind of advice would you give kind of people who are kind of stuck in between that phase of like, should I continue to push my passion and my career, like what I want to do in life, or do I just kind of push that to the side and continue my 9-to-5 job and pay these bills and keep up with that? What kind of advice would you give to those guys?
Well, I've gotten this question before, or questions similar, and what I always say is, I'm a big music guy too, and I can't remember who exactly said it, but one of my guys that I follow on the music scene, he said, if you're willing to write a song and it sounds good and you get down to it, there's a really good chance someone else will.
Yeah.
And so I kind of translated that philosophy. It's interesting for me because I obviously had a niche, right? It was a small sport. I knew that the quality of my work was good enough to get me a job in collegiate athletics. And so I just channeled that into disc golf. And so I knew the content was good, but if I wasn't committed to what I was doing and I wasn't like happy with the work I was doing, then no one else would be, because my heart wouldn't be in it, right? And so, you know, the reason why I was able to take the risk is because I was like, you know, I have a fairly good eye. I'm a fairly good critic of other people's work, but I'm a huge critic of my own work. And so I was like, if this is good enough for me, it's going to be good enough for someone else. And if I commit enough time to it, because obviously, like, if I don't have the time to put into a project, I'm not going to like the project, right? Because I'll know that I haven't spent enough time making it professional. Like it won't be up to my standards. And so by quitting that job, I was opening up time in my schedule to really focus on creating content that would be universally appreciated. Now, obviously, I had some resistance, and I've had resistance to stuff I've posted in the past. It's not for everyone. And actually, one of the reasons why I had left, you know, working with players and decided to work more with manufacturers is because, you know, fans decided along the way that they preferred if players just posted a picture and had a caption that they wrote. And I completely understand that, because it seems more personal than someone, you know, getting on their account and posting this really gorgeous post in response to a win. It doesn't seem genuine anymore. And it wasn't to say that people like didn't like the work. It just, they decided that it didn't work for players, and I agreed with them. And so that's how I made the transition into retail work. But that initial commitment just came from, you know, I was in a situation where I knew I was going to move anyway. I was going to leave North Carolina and move to Tennessee. And so there were factors involved, and I was in a unique position, and I'm very, you know, happy and grateful that I have people in my life that I can fall back on. And so I briefly moved home in between being in North Carolina and Tennessee. And so, like, obviously not everyone has, you know, those kind of resources. And I'm very grateful, because without that, I'm not sure that I would be here without having those handful of months to really focus on, you know, growing this without any other distractions. But if that weren't the case, I'm still sure that just through sheer will and commitment that I would still have gotten somewhere, you know? And so I think just staying focused and like trusting your stuff, so to speak, like knowing like I've gotten this far, I know what I can do, and just forcing projects through completion and trusting what you've done. That's how you get to a position, not to say that I've like, you know, attained success at all, but I'm very happy with where I am. And I think if people applied the same logic of just like committing to every single project with the same amount of focus, like you'll get to where you want to go at some point. Right.
It's like being kind of confident in the work you put in and the stuff that you know, you know, and then really applying that confidence into your work, into your career, into your passion. You know, it's really great. And so we kind of, you know, I commend you for that. And, you know, it's great to see, you know, the Teebox Disc Golf, you know, kind of brand grow. And it's awesome.
Disc golf in itself grow.
Yeah, you know, it's real inspiring, you know, for young, you know, entrepreneurs like us who want to, you know, do things like eventually.
Right. And like that's the goal, you know. Like when I started this thing, it was like, you know, there's all these new audience members, right, who are getting on Instagram, because everyone uses Instagram for the most part. And so they're getting on Instagram and they're going out and playing disc golf, and then they go home and they start looking at disc golf stuff on their phone. And I was like, when I started this company, I was like, I want my artwork to be like the first thing they see, so that when they start disc golf, from the moment they get into it, like my name is associated with the sport. And now that I'm not really leaving Teebox, but like, you know, Teebox is like a social media management company that works with players. At least that's what it has been. And now that I'm working for a manufacturer, like I'm shifting focus and changing what the identity of the brand is. I'm going to focus more on like, you know, collaborations and apparel, and make sure that, you know, even though I might not be posting there every week and getting, you know, new artwork out to people because I just have a mountain of other work to do, I'll still focus on giving people, you know, options to go online and buy Teebox merchandise, or, you know, post disc reviews or something, just to keep people engaged, so that, you know, with, like I said, with every new player who gets on their phone to look up, like if Kevin Jones is their new favorite player because they saw him play on, X event on Jomez when they first picked up a disc, like when they go to his account right now, they'll be like, oh, who's making this sick content for him? And there's my name tag at the bottom every single time.
Right.
And so it's just like putting Teebox in front of people, though in the future, the idea of what that is might change. Like I'd still want that, like this logo to be, pervasive, right? Like I want it to appear in disc golf for like, decades to come. And so, it's a bold idea and maybe it's a little ambitious, but I'm making strides and I
You
feel
gotta
like
aim
I'm
high.
moving in the right direction for it. Right. Which in disc golf is aiming high is pretty attainable for just, it's hard for me to aim high in the NFL right now because it's a massive beast. But disc golf is like it's always seemed approachable. And so I will say, if you get into disc golf, especially the pro side, I think one thing that makes it attractive outside of like we talked about the addictive factor, if you watch pro disc golf online and you watch these guys, huck plastic and you're like, man, that's so cool. That guy just threw it like 650 feet. The guy who threw that disc, has an Instagram and will probably respond to you. It's very accessible. I was on a podcast on last week, and one of the things I talked about on there was, the relationship that players have with their fans and vice versa. In disc golf, like, for example, if I wanted to go get like Brady's autograph, I'm not just going to show up to Raymond James and walk down to the field and be like, yo, Tom, here's my jersey, sign it. Like that's never going to happen.
Not happening.
But in disc golf, like you can go to any event and, pretty easily get to like the players' RVs. Not to say that like anybody listening, if you get into disc golf, please do not go like paparazzi these people they won't like that. But it's so much more accessible. Like Paul Macbeth, the guy I talked about earlier, the guy who lost to James Conrad on that throw-in, 5-time world champ, by far the most popular player, very approachable at the end of a round. Like, he's one of these guys who will go up and he'll sign autographs, and it's very easy to interact with your favorite player just because of the size of the sport and it's more accessible and they're more used to it. That's not going to last much longer, I don't think, just the way things are moving and the way things are growing. And also players like wanting to increase the value of like their brand and of like an autograph. Disc golf, if you sell a signed disc, it will sell for less than an unsigned disc because the audience is just like, this is just a disc with ink on it.
Yeah,
like you could sign any name on it. It like I want the disc and now I'm not going to because it has ink on it. It's really weird. But it's very accessible and it's very easy to, be able to have like at least a, acquaintance relationship with these people that you idolize, which is, I think, unique to the size of the sport. It's not like anything in baseball or football or whatever. And so it's kind of a unique facet of disc golf that I appreciate.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Paul, I don't want to take too much more of your time. You already graced us with a great conversation here today. We did want to give you the floor to end it off. Whatever you want to say to newcomers, what you're excited about disc golf for the future, where you think, disc golf could go, whatever you want to do, your ads, whatever you want, bro. The floor is yours, man.
Sure. Yeah. Get out there. Like I said, just go pick up a disc. If you have a play it against sports, I can't suggest more just going in and looking at a used disc. It might cost you $5. Go out, find a course, find a field, throw it, and just see if it works for you. If you're in the Tampa area, check out Local Route Disc Golf. They're just on the other side of Gulf to Bay and I guess technically like Safety Harbor. Trevor Tonius is the owner. He's a great guy and they do great work over there, and they'll hook you up with anything you want. If you want to shop online, my company, Ledgestone, shop.ledgestone.com, has all of your disc golf needs. But as far as me, if you want to follow me and follow the work that I do as kind of a gateway into the sport, at Teebox Disc Golf, they said it's on the screen. So
yeah, we'll add it on the screen.
And do internet magic.
We got the production
and check it out there. But I've got big plans for my brand and for the future. And so if you're interested in tracking that, you should give me a follow, and I will follow back probably if it looks like you came from the show. I will definitely try to follow you back if that's what you're into. But yeah, no, thanks guys for having me on. It was a blast. I'd love to come on in the future and just talk like sports in general, because I miss just having obnoxious sports conversations with Alejandro. Criticizing the Gamecocks for sucking, and criticizing Bama for sucking, and fingers crossed Georgia decides to keep sucking. Yep. But yeah, thanks guys. It was a blast. I'd love to do it again.
Thanks for coming in. We'll for sure have you again, and have a good night, man. Thanks.
Thank you.